We're looking forward to hearing about the female birds.
Well, I can say I saw a Vesper sparrow in the far, far east part of Sarasota County, almost really in DeSoto County.
Evelyn, it's called voice typing. She was speaking into her speaker. It was an anhinga and an osprey, not a cuddle do or an angel.
Boy,
Oh dear.
AI does not help.
No. And Jeff Humberger in Lakewood Ranch, his pond is full of ducks, hooded
Oh,
mergansers, and ringnut ducks. How
Hey,
fun.
Jeff, where in Lakewood Ranch? Tell us where you saw the mergansers, suited mergansers.
Yeah, those are fun.
We
They're
used to have them
they're
in our
little
park, but
mohawks. I love it. Okay. Doreen Weekly in Sarasota had white pelicans in her pond. Oh, how
oh,
fun. Speaking of females, I saw the prettiest female cardinal at Celery Fields yesterday. Well, good for her, because some of those females are not as striking. Indigo off White Eagle, Margie.
oh, yes. Oh, great.
Okay, Margie's off there yet tomorrow, looking for those
Bye.
merganders. You
yeah,
won't see
right.
him tonight. You can wait till tomorrow. We need you here. Okay. Well, we'll get started. We have Jean tonight instead of Sarah. So, and let me get on. There we go. Want to get everyone out to Fly Wild. Put it on your calendars. You'll be getting an email this week about the volunteers. So if members are able to volunteer, that will be awesome. We have, along with a photo contest going, we've got lots of entries in the photos. The Birdathon, I'm hearing that folks are not quite sure. So I'm going to share another part of my, let's see, where are we? This page. Share. This is what, so the Birdathon is you're going to get pledges from your friends, and it's a very simple sign up on a Google form if you go to the web page for the Birdathon, which is on sarasotaAudubon.org. And once you sign up there with your partner, then Christian Dillon is going to send you a link to this website, which is called 99 Pledges, and you will share your page with your friends, and they just come to this page, which you'll have access to once you sign up, and they can donate whatever they want, and then people can see how you're doing.
Hey,
So,
maybe explain what a birdathon is in terms of funding it, because I didn't know. Maybe I'm just different, but
well, people who have kids, and we don't all have kids, do we? So
no.
people who have kids know about walkathons. So at schools, this 99 Pledges is set up for school fundraisers, and it's a fundraiser. So the money you're raising is going to Sarasota Audubon so that we can put on an awesome festival, and also to help with all of our other operating expenses. So
We
Now,
ask we ask our friends to pledge to us a certain amount per whatever we do, whatever bird we see in the birdathon.
right. So
it could be, excuse me, Karen, it could be, Margie, that a friend will say, I'll give you $1 for every species you see. Or
Okay,
another friend may say, oh, I don't, it doesn't matter about how many birds you see, I'll pledge $50 for the day. So it
okay,
any which way that you decide or you feel that your friends could afford, actually. Friends and
right.
family, get your families involved. No,
yeah.
that's
So it's really easy. You will the website's online, but it's spending a day anywhere in Sarasota during and any 24-hour period, and you don't have to bird for 24 hours. You just have that time. You choose it the week of February 13th. So now's the time to get set up, and then by the February 21st, when we have the festival, we'll know who did the best in the birdathon. And
Karen,
yeah.
you also don't need to use the what's it called, right? You
The
can
QR,
also
you don't
go
have to use the
on.
QR code. It's all online. This is just, we're making up flyers for folks who want to use a QR code, but
Right, but
it's on the website. You go to Sarasota Audubon, and on the events tab, you'll see Fly Wild and the Birdathon right there.
somebody's got their finger on a key. So we've got all these lines showing up.
Oh, Anna. I don't know what. Okay.
How
so
did that
I
happen?
think, I don't know.
It's blocking people
I
printing.
think I'm not seeing it. Are you seeing it on my screen?
Yes. I'm seeing it on the chat.
Oh,
What are you seeing?
I think I didn't see it in the chat. Anyway, so this Wednesday, member only. So hopefully you're a member, and if you're not, you can join us. Meet and greet Sean Carey. He has some awesome photos of his trip to Tanzania. Mostly birds, but a lot of birds in action with some really cool critters. So you don't want to miss that. 2 o'clock at the Nature Center. So this Wednesday. All right, I'm going to turn it over to
me.
Jean.
Hi, everybody. Jean Doobie here. So wonderful to be able to see you all, or for you to see me. I want to thank everybody for continuing to support Sarasota Audubon. As you know, we're a small but mighty organization with a big voice in our community, and we have so many things that are going on. And Sarah Reisinger, our president, has got so much energy and so many ideas that it's amazing. And one of the things she's doing and put together is this Fly Wild that Karen was just talking about. We think that's going to be a major event, and I will be there on that day at the quad. And that is the time for everybody who wants to come and see the progress of the Southeast Quad. We've planted trees and shrubs, and we've now installing a pond, and the trolley that's going to go around the celery fields will be stopping at the quad. So I expect to see you all there. It would be wonderful to see you. I'll be taking tours around the quad and explaining the plans that we have, and it's just going to be a wonderful day. So it's just great to see you. I'm still here. I'm still very much involved in Audubon and watching everything that's being done. And it's just being done incredibly well and splendidly. So keep up the good work, everybody. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Margie now, who's going to introduce the wonderful Joanna Wu, who's going to talk about all of her bird studies, especially female birds. So I can't wait to see that too. So off you go, Margie.
It's my great pleasure to introduce you all to Joanna Wu, who's a doctorate PhD, who, among other things, is involved in the Galbatross Project, which is the focuses on, and she will focus actually on the incredible importance of studying female birds. I'm really excited about this topic, and it's been way overlooked, and I'm so glad that Joanna's going to really bring us into a much better perspective on what we should all be doing when we're watching birds or studying them or just enjoying them in our backyard. So Joanna is an ornithologist and ecologist at the University of California in Los Angeles, UCLA. And for her postdoc work, she is studying survival and habitat use differences between female and male birds. Her research is also identifying biases in scientific studies and exploring how anthropogenic changes. What does anthropogenic mean? I should have asked you that before we started. She's exploring how anthropogenic changes differently impact the sexes of birds. What does that mean?
Yeah, anthropogenic means events caused by humans. So climate change is one of the ones, and habitat loss is another example of an anthropogenic change.
Well, you said it. We got it straight finally. So, and we certainly need to be looking at that. So, how human changes human changes differently impact the sexes of birds. So Joanna is committed to amplifying underrepresented voices in science and is a member, as I said, of the Galbatross Project, a collective of scientists, birders, writers, and conservationists dedicated to raising awareness about often overlooked female birds. So Joanna's got a very extensive background. From 2016 to 2021, she was an avian ecologist and project manager at the National Audubon Society, where she contributed to climate change analysis, authored reports and publications, and engaged in conservation efforts and public outreach. And before that, she worked at the Institute for Bird Populations in the San Francisco Bay Area as a biologist, studying songbirds, bumblebees, and owls in the Sierra Nevada in post-fire habitats. Joanna completed her master's degree at the University of Hawaii, where she conducted research on the endemic thrush, the Omao. And when she's not working, she enjoys running, camping, birding, and birding while running. So take it away, Joanna. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you, Margie, for the very nice introduction. And I'm really pleased to be here with all of you this evening. I hope you're not getting background noise. My dog will calm down in a second here. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get started here and talk about my presentation to you this evening. I'm going to talk about the most overlooked birds in North America, female birds. And one quick correction is that I'm still working on my PhD, so I'm not quite there yet, but I look forward to being a PhD and to do postdoc work eventually. But the work I'm presenting on is some of the work from my PhD and some from just working with the Galbatross Project. So let's see. First of all, I want to thank my fellow Galbatrosses, and I'll talk more about them later on. And I want to thank projects like the Female Birdsong Project, Ken Kaufman, and many others that have inspired me and us to look at female birds. I'm certainly not the first person to think, oh, gee, we should look at female birds. So I'm just here amplifying the message that's already out there. Again, I want to thank Margie Haas, Karen White-Willie, and Sarasota Audubon Society for having me this evening. I was really excited to look on your website and see the Fly Wild Festival that Karen has just talked about, and that it features a female belted kingfisher, which is a bird that I love to use as my sort of featured bird here. This is one of the few birds where the male lacks the belt, and this bird is actually named for the rusty belt that occurs on the female's chest, and the male is also very cool but doesn't have that rusty color here. So you guys chose a female belted kingfisher for that festival. I hope it's a good one. Just a brief outline of what I'll be covering today. I'm going to talk about why we should focus on female birds, and talk about Female Bird Day and the Galbatross Project, And I'm going to give some identification tips that are visual and in terms of vocalizations and in behavior. I know that a lot of you are going to be better birders than I am, but I hope that each of you can learn some small tidbit today. But at the end of the day, it's really hard, and sometimes the sexes can be told easily apart. Lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit more about female song and give you some resources that you can look into to learn more about female birds.
Do you need to get your doggy? Do you need to get your doggy to?
Sorry.
Would it help you if we can understand that doggies can get in the?
We didn't hear the dog the whole half hour we were talking to her.
That's
okay.
right.
Let me put him in a different room. It's sort of like dog walking hour right now. It's almost 4 something here in LA. So let me just put him in a different room. Sorry about that. Be right back.
I think it's easier for you too, maybe.
Well, I love that she was promoting our Fly Wild Festival because we chose her bird, the female belted kingfisher.
That's right.
That was an artist drawing from one of a Ringling student from 2 years ago who was working with us on a project. So we really, really liked that cool female belted kingfisher and chose it for our Fly Wild logo. So.
Okay, sorry about that. Hopefully that's better now.
All right.
I didn't realize how much it was echoing through the house. Okay, so I'll go ahead and continue, but so I'll try to make this presentation a little bit interactive. There'll be parts that you can note things in the chat or some QR codes to scan if you're interested in finding out more. But yeah, feel free to use the chat, and I think there'll be a Q&A as well at the end. So why female birds? Why are we talking specifically females and not all birds? Well, I Googled, if you Google bird, these are some of the first images that come up. A beautiful male Baltimore Oriole, a blue jay, and a beautiful scarlet tanager, again, male. And some of the things that these birds have in common are they're vibrant, they're eye-catching, and that's because we humans are visual creatures. We use sight as our sort of most important cue, and we're drawn to colors, and these birds are vibrant and they're beautiful photographs. But here is my first quiz for you all. What is this species of bird? If anyone knows it, please go ahead and drop it in the chat. What is this bird? Okay, I see the first guess rolling in. Are there other guesses here?
Yeah, I said bunting.
Yeah.
Someone else said female scarlet tanager, painted bunting, which is what I think it is. Palm warbler.
Yeah, these are great guesses.
Female rainbow bunting.
So
scarlet tanager.
Yeah, it does look like a painted bunting, but it's
Larry
a female
Master
scarlet tanager.
got it. Great.
You got it. So right, just this is the male scarlet tanager, and he's so much different from the female here. And from this example, I think you all can see why we naturally gravitate toward males. And it's not anything malicious. It's not that we don't care about the female half of the species, but it makes this bird easier to overlook compared to her really bright male counterpart. I'm going to introduce some terms here that many of you are already familiar with as birders. There's the term dimorphic, two morphs. So it's where the male and females look different. This is my favorite bird of all time, the California quail. The male has more striking coloration and a little question mark plume on top of his head. The female does as well, but she lacks the black throat patch. This is a species that's dimorphic, where the sexes are different from each other. We've got another extreme example of dimorphism in the Eclectus parrot. This is a species where the male is green and, sorry, yes, the male is green and the female is the red one, the red and blue one on the left. And she actually lays multiple nests in tree cavities and has multiple mates. And the males are the ones that go around and forage for food and bring them back. So he's green and more conspicuous. He blends in with the forest while she's bright and she's territorial and she defends different territories. It's such an extreme case of dimorphism that when they first tried to keep the Eclectus parrot in zoos, they were keeping the red birds with the red birds and the green birds with the green birds and wondering why they weren't breeding. But if I saw these in the wild, I would never have guessed they belong to the same species, but they in fact do. In contrast, the black-crowned night heron is a species that's monomorphic, where both sexes look the same. Of course, the juveniles look different from adults, but just by looking at it, you can't tell the sexes apart when they're adults. Okay, and then there's different degrees of dimorphism among birds around the world. Typically in the northern hemisphere, males are brighter and more colorful. For example, in the first row are birds where males are brighter than the female counterparts. But a lot of these rules come from the northern hemisphere and don't necessarily apply to the tropics. The birds in the bottom row here are tropical birds where sexes look similar. So they include what do we got? Blue-winged mountain tanager, crimson collar tanager, and chestnut cap brushfinch. And these are birds where the sexes are look the same as each other, are monomorphic. And then, of course, we've got cases of what I don't really like this term, but it's classically called reverse sexual dimorphism, where the female is more brightly colored than the male. Again, this is a polyandrous species where the females have multiple mates, so they're brighter and they are more defensive of territories. I would really like to see a pair of phalaropes in their breeding plumage. Whenever I see them, they're kind of dull here in California. So if anyone has seen them in the Arctic, please drop that note in the chat. That's one of my goals, to get up there in their breeding season and see them in their breeding plumage. So this sort of unconscious bias certainly extends into photography and art. Christmas has just passed. You almost never see a Christmas card with a female cardinal on it. It's always the male, the bright red male. And then in terms of photography, we like the iridescent hummingbirds. Here in California, we've got Anna's hummingbirds, and they've got this bright pink throat. The females lack the same degree of coloration. So we just gravitate toward these brighter individuals as humans. This bias also pervades into naming. The bird on the left is called the blue grosbeak, and there's hardly anything blue about her. She's got a little bit of blue in her wing feather patch, but she is named a blue grosbeak because the male is quite blue. And then we've got, of course, the red-winged blackbird on the right. The male certainly has the red wing, but the female is brown streaked and looks a lot like a sparrow. It confuses people every year into thinking that she's a sparrow, but she's in fact a red-winged blackbird. I want to read this little quote by Florence Mariam Bailey. Like other ladies, the little feather bird brides have to bear their husbands' names, however inappropriate. What injustice! Here, an innocent creature with an olive green back and yellowish breast has to go about all her days known as the black-throated blue warbler, just because that happens to describe the dress of her spouse. There's nothing really black and blue about this warbler. So our naming is very much skewed toward the sex that's more vibrant, and that's often the male in the northern hemisphere, as I mentioned. This unconscious bias occurs in bird watching as well. And here's my first QR code. If you haven't seen this article, I highly recommend you check it out. It's an article written by the field guide author Ken Kaufman, who wrote that he once knew a birder who would only count a bird on his list if he had seen the male of that species. This certainly doesn't make sense because seeing a female is half of the species, so you don't count half of the species just because by virtue of their sex. So Ken writes this wonderful article about how when he focuses more on females, he has to hone in on the finer traits. So the shape of the bill, the seasons, the eye stripe, and things like that, that really tell the sexes apart as opposed to just colors themselves. Now, I hope I've given you enough reasons to understand why we unconsciously favor males, but this can have real life consequences. I'm sure all of you here care a lot about conservation of species. And this article that inspired me a lot looks at sexual segregation of habitats in the golden-winged warbler and found that female and male golden-winged warblers use different habitats in the non-breeding season. Female golden-winged warblers use lower elevation, slightly drier sites that are closer to human habitation. And because of that, those areas are more prone to logging and have lost twice as much habitat as the higher elevation forests used by male golden-winged warblers. So if you were only to do a study focused on male golden-winged warbler habitats, you would completely miss out on the areas that female golden-wings need. And this is the type of work that really inspires me to think about what we could be missing if we aren't looking at the holistic picture, if we aren't looking at female birds alongside with male birds. I'll give some more examples of ways that the sexes divide up habitats. We have a black and white warbler here. And in both of these habitats, so on the top, we have mangrove habitats, the bottom, we have scrub habitats. Females are found more in the understory by percentage than males are, and males dominate the mid and upper canopies of these habitats. So they have a vertical structure or difference as well in how the sexes are using habitats. And then in another example, found that wandering albatrosses segregate by sex in that females, which are larger, are closer to the poles, and they were actually caught more in pelagic lawn-like fishing operations than males were. So just by virtue of them using different habitats, they can encounter fishing operations at different rates and can be affected differently. But I'll say that this pattern is not prevalent for all albatrosses. Another study here on the right by Julian Collet and colleagues, they did not find any sex-based differences in bycatch of albatrosses. So this one is not universal, but still alarming in the cases that it is found. So this is one of the anthropogenic effects is climate change. In birds like the wedge-tailed shearwater, females nest in burrows, and with climate change, more flooding events have occurred due to the changing environments. And the study has found direct mortality of females that are in the burrows due to the flooding. Another example I'll give is that migration timing has been changing due to climate change. In neotropical migratory birds like warblers, typically the males arrive a little bit earlier than the females do in the spring to breed. So males come a little bit earlier, and then the females peak in their arrival times. And with climate change, temperatures are getting warmer earlier, and resources are oftentimes greening up a little earlier. So we expect a shift to the left that both sexes are coming earlier. But what a study has found is that males are in fact arriving at breeding grounds earlier, but females are tends to stay to the same migratory timing, and that leads to a lack of synchrony in their arrival periods. It's not clear what effect this has on breeding, but I think it's interesting to consider the sexes separately for that reason too. So as I mentioned, or as Margie mentioned in the introduction, I'm interested in studying whether there's any scientific bias in how scientists study birds. I hope I've convinced you that studying both sexes is really important and they can tell us different patterns, but there can be biases in whether the males and females are studied equally, just like how there's biases in observing male and female birds when we're bird watching. The tool, the mobile app eBird, is a really great tool, and it's really changed how we bird watch, as well as how me and my colleagues analyze data. And it's got a lot of breeding code observations where you can say, oh, there's a flyover, or there's a singing male that's present for 7 days. But as far as I know, the mobile app doesn't even have a place to collect data on sex. So you can't note that you saw 4 females and 2 males, which I think is really important data to have, just so that we can analyze even locations where males and females are present and whether they're selecting different habitats. So eBird might have some bias in that they're lacking data collection about sexes. Museums are often male biased. So here's a drawer of mangoes, and there's only a couple of females, which are here, but the other ones are male. So there's been multiple papers that have documented that there's a male bias in both bird and mammal natural history collections. So therefore, if scientists are using these collections to draw inferences and to study the sexes, you're going to have more information about males than you are about females. Which brings us all to Female Bird Day and the Galbatross Project. The Galbatrosses are we're a group of 5 people who were established in 2019. We're scientists, birders, writers, and conservationists connected through the National Audubon Society initially. And we noted that there was this discrepancy in that the males are emphasized a little more, whether it's in bird watching or conservation and science. So we set out to educate people through talks like these and through events and social media about the importance of female birds. So here's some more information about our website. If you're interested, take a look. And in 2019, these are some of the very best birders I know. We've got Martha Harbison, Prabita Saha, and Stephanie Bilkey. They're really fun colleagues and really phenomenal birders. And they went out to compete in the World Series of Birding in New Jersey to see the most number of birds in one day. But they did it only counting female birds. This was in May, so it just at the beginning of the breeding season, where the sexes are relatively easy to tell apart. But still, they came out second to last place, and they beat out only a group of toddlers in the number of species they were able to see, because it was so hard to definitively identify males in this competition. Definitively identify females in this competition. And I'm very happy to report that 4 of them were able to go out this past year in 2025 and redo the World Series of Birding. And this time they beat their previous record. They got 38 species. I think they got low 30s last time, including some female prothonotary warblers here, Mississippi kite, laughing gull, brown-headed cowbird, chipping sparrow, etc. So yay for upping the record a little bit, but this really just goes to show how hard it is to identify female birds in the field. All right, so speaking of the Galbatrosses, the 5 of us wrote a paper in the past year on how focusing on females can improve science and conservation. It talks about some of the things I've mentioned, and here's a QR code. You can scan it if you'd like to read more, read this paper in greater detail. And yeah, but basically, we talk about how sex governs a lot of aspects of biology, like survival, reproductive roles, vocalization, impacts by climate change, dispersal, and habitat use, and that these fields tend to be overlooked. So we should, this is a call for scientists to study the sexes separately more. This only skims the surface, and there's so many aspects such as disease, physiology, endocrinology, diet, etc. There's so many other ways that sex governs the biology. So there's quite a lot to uncover here. It's very exciting. And we basically make recommendations for collection of female bird data. One includes techniques to improve recognizing female traits and just having more data that's sex specific in general. That will help a lot. And then the second one talks about who and where, and basically we need to encourage community contribution and broaden the regions of study to broaden our holistic understanding of male and female birds across different parts of the world. I was really excited that this work was covered by the National Geographic, and they had a funny title, Bird Science Has a Bro Bias. So feel free to look for that as well as a way to read about that paper. Okay, so next I'm going into sort of like a lesson type format of my talk. I'm going to talk about ways to identify female birds. So you're like, okay, let's give you some tools that you can use next time you go on a walk. And as I mentioned, the sexes can be visibly dimorphic. Here is a pair of northern flickers. The male has a black mustachio stripe and the female lacks that. That's a way to tell flickers apart by sex. There are some really obvious ones, or so it seems. Male house finches are bright red and females are brown with streaking. But of course, if you see this individual in the late summer and fall, it could be a juvenile male that hasn't yet developed his alternate breeding plumage. So beware of seasons as well. Here's a more minute detail. Did you know that European starlings are dimorphic and that males have gray at the base and females have more of a pinkish color at the base? This one's really hard to tell and I don't always have success with it, but yeah, it's a really fine trait and a fun one to look for. Size is a good way to tell sexes apart in raptors. We know that in raptors like the American kestrel, the females are bigger. So here is a male, and not only are they different in coloration, but the females are slightly bigger here. She looks bigger even though she's in the background compared to the male. I've got another quiz here. What's the species of bird? What's the species of hawk on the left here? That was a clue. It's a hawk. So while you guys go ahead and type that in the chat, I'll mention that the female is the one on the left. She's bigger. And the male is the one on the right. He's quite a bit smaller. She's also molting here. It looks like he's older and she's younger, which is also indicated by her yellow eye color compared to his red coloration. Yeah, Larry again with the win. It's a Cooper's hawk, which you can tell from the curved part of the tail and a slightly larger head to body ratio than a sharp-shinned hawk. So we've got a pair of great horned owls here, and typically when I see them next to each other, the females aren't this much bigger, but females are bigger than males in raptors like owls. And they also sound differently. So sometimes even from my bedroom window, I can hear a pair of great horns hooting to each other. And I'm gonna play that for you. The female here is higher pitched, so the male is lower pitched in great horned owls. So she starts out calling. She's higher pitched and the male is lower pitched in the background. Try to listen for that. It's a really fun one. Okay, so now we have some behaviors. For example, in Eastern kingbirds or any kind of Amphidonax flycatcher, whether you can identify them or not, only the females make nests and only the females incubate. And that's the same in chickadees, only females do that role here. And then there are some behaviors like pair feeding in birds like common terns, blue jays, cedar waxwings, and northern cardinals. The males will tend to feed the females in a courtship behavior. This is a really funny, amazing photo of a merganser with a bunch of ducklings, which are not all hers. I think that some of the ducklings from other broods just started to follow her, and it's an amazing photo. But yeah, in ducks, only the females care for young. But I will say that in a lot of passerine birds, parental duties are divided pretty evenly between the sexes, and it requires the full participation of both mom and dad to successfully raise a clutch because chicks are so demanding. So it's hard, and sometimes you can't always tell the sexes apart. For example, in a pair of mourning doves, I read that the males have a brighter blue lores and bare patches, but it's such a fine detail, it's hard to tell them apart. We've got another fine one, and here I'm going to ask you what species, so not sex, but what species is the female woodpecker on the right here. So we've got the downy and hairy woodpecker. This is an amazing photo that someone captured that they happen to be right next to each other, and you can see that the hairy is quite a bit larger than the downy. And in both of these species, the males have a red dot on the back of their head and the females lack that. So let's see. Yeah, people guess both hairy and downy, and it is in fact a hairy woodpecker, which we can tell because its bill is thicker. The downy has a slighter bill. That's they say that the hairy's bill is about the length of its head. It's very minute. Great, and thanks for playing along. So we've got birds like the spotted towhee that's pretty subtle, where the male is a little bit more vibrant than the female, but they're both similarly colored. And then a really subtle one is a pileated woodpecker, where again the male has a red spot on next to his bill, and the female does not have that coloration. But they both have a red crest, although the male's red crest touches the bill and the female's does not. Another really subtle one is that male cedar waxwings have a darker throat patch than females. So females are lighter and males have a darker throat here. Okay, this is one of my favorite ones, and it's true in both the black and American oystercatcher, where the male has a clear pupil dot and females tend to often have a pigment smudge that's outside of the circular pupil. This was confirmed when they did genetic testing, looking at with the pupil smudge versus the ones without the pupil pigmentation, and it's like over 90% of the case that the pupil pigmentation is the female oystercatcher. So just such a fine little detail, a good one to look for if you guys have American oystercatchers out there. Here's another really fine one. In the American avocet, the bird in the foreground here is a male. The male has a longer, straighter beak, and the female has a more recurved beak than the male does. And that's because that's thought to be to help them use resources differently. So the males can access maybe deeper resources in the mudflats, and females can access like shallower ones so that they don't compete so much again with each other. Really amazing adaptation. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier, but when you see this yellow warbler, another important thing to keep in mind is seasons. If you see a bird like this in like May or June at the peak of breeding season, it's probably a female that's maybe before they have young. But if you see this yellow warbler like in fall, it could be migrating, it could be a first year male that hasn't grown his colors in. So seasonality is an important thing to keep in mind when trying to identify the sexes. And then we've got birds like the American coot that you can't tell visually which one is male versus female. Okay, so finally I'm going to talk about the Female Bird Song Project. This is a project that's been going on, or scientists have been studying female bird song since the 90s. So I definitely want to give them a shout out and talk about how important it is to think about females as also singing. Karen Odom and other co-authors found that the common ancestor of songbirds or passerines likely had female song. So they studied the phylogeny of passerines and found that in the lineages with red dots are the ones where female birdsong was present. Lineages with blue dots are ones that have lost female birdsong. So it's likely that the ancestor state required both sexes to sing to each other as a form of communication, and that's been subsequently lost in some of the birds we have today. In North America, which is a relatively new has pretty new lineages of songbirds, at least 150 North American species have female bird song, and that number is growing as we find more information about them. So in species where we have information on sex-specific songs, female song is present in 64 of the species in North America itself, and it's absent in 36. So the old thought that only males sing and they defend territories is certainly not accurate for even many birds in North America, for 2/3 of songbirds. Okay, so next I'm gonna shift gears and basically it's sort of exciting to be at the nexus of these things where scientists are noticing that female birds do sing and that female and male birds use different habitats and so forth. So yeah, part of the efforts that the Galbatrosses are trying to support and amplify the work that the scientists are doing. Another way that we're amplifying the importance of female birds is we were able to work with the Audubon Photography Awards, which has been really fun. And basically, I was looking for photos of female birds, and I found very little in the Audubon's website or database of photographs. So I was talking to the photo editor, and I said, I can't find any photos on female birds. She said, huh, I never really thought about it. How about we come up with a category to encourage people to submit photos on female birds? So the next year in 2021, we came up with a female bird prize, which is awarded to the best photo of a female bird with a prize of $1,000 at the time. And they invited the Galbatrosses to be judges of the female bird prize. We went through a stringent vetting process to make sure we could tell from the photo that it was a female bird. So that depended on season, location, metadata that the authors submitted. And we were so pleased that in 2021, we were able to pick this female Northern Harrier as the winner. So just as a review, male Northern Harriers are gray and females are brown. And we picked this one hovering over a marsh in California in beautiful light, just doing what harriers do, looking really radiant. And in 2022, the photo that we picked was a female greater sage grouse. Now, we've all seen photos of male sage grouse with their awesome air sacs and lek displays, but the reason they're doing this is to impress the females. So we've got this amazing photo of a female in, I think the photographer said it was -30 weather or something like that, but very impressive. metadata with this photo. This is one of my favorite photos. In 2023, the winner was a Baltimore Oriole. Again, one that the male is much more vibrant, but we love that she's got so much nest lining that it covers her whole body. It's got this sort of airy, magical look to this photo. And the photographer wrote that this Oriole was collecting horse hairs from the neighbor's yard to line her nests. In 2024, the winner was a wild turkey. Again, the male is one that we're really familiar with, but this one was just really cool, cool how it was framed by train tracks at this urban wildlife interface, showing that wildlife persists in all sorts of environments. And in 2025, just this past year, this really lovely sweet photo of a chipping sparrow carrying nesting material was selected as the winner. Just really beautiful lighting here. Again, this is one where females do the nest building. So in summary, I want to say a couple of things is to let you know that, female birds are not necessarily just like the males. We can't get all the information about a species just by studying male birds. And don't make assumptions that they are just occupying similar habitats or have similar diet requirements or whatnot. And I challenge you all to bird the challenge, to look for those finer details that really set the sexes apart. And I guarantee you'll become a better birder for it as well. So some of the questions I'm interested in studying for my PhD work are, do male birds live longer than females? There are studies suggesting that lifespan differs by sex. So carrying on that work with golden wing warbler, I'm curious to understand if female and male birds live in different habitats. This is mostly for the non-breeding season, since neotropical migrants breed in same areas in North America, for example. And I think it's really important going forward to understand how the sexes are impacted by climate change differently, since humans are changing parts of the globe in so many different ways. So when I started my PhD work at UCLA, it was 2021, and I wrote a proposal to the National Science Foundation, which is the NSF. A lot of my proposal included work like female, male-dominated biases, etc., because I'm interested to study, because of my interest. And these are some of the words that are now prone to additional scrutiny at our national government, which I think is, of course, dangerous because it occludes part of reality. If you aren't allowed to study the female of a gender, for example, that doesn't really make sense to me because that's half of the species, right? So I think this type of scrutiny and maybe even selection against these topics can be dangerous, and I encourage you all to just educate yourself of this, because it's going to affect our love of birds and research as well. So yeah, with that, I want to thank you all so much for your attention. If you're on social media, you can tag your female bird observations with #FemaleBirds or #Galbatross Project. This, by the way, is a female bush tit, and she has yellow eyes, whereas the males have brown gray eyes. I know you all don't have bush tits out in Florida, but just such a fine trait that I wanted to share. There are many resources that you can use. For example, the Birds of the World is really good start to, and they typically have photos of both sexes. There's Identification Guide by Peter Pyle that goes really into depth. And then photos at the Macaulay Library at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And a lot of times field technicians, longtime stewards and birders like you guys like you all have a lot of knowledge that you can teach each other and so forth as well. And if you want to read more scientific papers, Google Scholar is a good way to. A lot of times you don't need like institutional access to look at papers that through Google Scholar. So with that, that concludes my talk. I want to thank you and also share my contact information. And I'll turn it over to the event organizers for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask you, you talked about the current administration's rather scary decision that we shouldn't that what they decided to flag words such as female, quote unquote, when reviewing grant applications at the NSF. Have you been, I don't want to put you on the spot, but has that affected your ability to work and get the proper funding for your own research? This is really scary. And not only, I guess NSF research includes bird research, right? As well as research on human females.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I have not personally been affected because I obtained my funding. I did get my funding through NSF, but I obtained it before the current administration. So luckily I've been fine, but I know some medical doctors whose research on HIV or underrepresented human populations or topics that belong to the words I mentioned have been stalled. So it's pretty serious. Yeah.
It is. I'm so glad that your research funding preceded this bizarre turn in NSF funding to not use. I understand they're literally looking at female birds and don't use the word female when you're trying to research birds anymore. It's bizarre. But thank you so much for your talk. It's really fascinating, and I really want to encourage you to keep going and maybe convince eBird when we eBird on our phones that I guess we really can't make that distinction. We saw 5 females and 4 males, or unless we're keeping lists and putting them online.
Yeah, at conferences, I've met folks who work at eBird, and I've requested that they add that feature to their app. And one of them said, "Oh, is it not on there? Okay, I'll take a look." You know what I'm saying? But the fact is, like, you can specify sexes on the desktop version of eBird, but you can't do it from the mobile app. And a lot of us use it from our phones now.
Everyone's.
I don't know
using their
why it
phone in
doesn't
the
seem
field.
hard. Yeah. Exactly. It doesn't seem hard to add that functionality, but I guess they just haven't prioritized it enough to push that change. Yeah. So if y'all want to write to eBird, that would be great.
Among the resources that you mentioned, are there some that where we can find the habitat differences between males and females of a species?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think probably the best one is going to be the Birds of the World guide. This one, birdsoftheworld.org. They talk about, they have detailed pages not only on identification, but on habitat movements, demography, diet, and they'll try to provide sex-specific information where it exists, but a lot of the time that hasn't been studied, so you might not have information on it. Or you can Google like female bird habitat of black and white warbler, you know, something specific, and you might be able to find some papers on Google Scholar that way.
Sorry, I keep getting muted. I don't know why. I really want to encourage you to let people know that this is so important, because it turns out, right, if the female research on females is not supported enough, that can really affect the whole future of the entire species, of course.
We're not getting questions, but I did get a really good comment. Doreen Weekly says, really enjoyed your presentation. I had never thought or known about the impact of the bias. So,
Right. And
good.
Evelyn McQueen says, great presentation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then another person says, fabulous, ditto. Yeah, I just think this is such an intriguing and very important topic.
Yes.
And I guess maybe when you were talking about female bird song, it seems like maybe the passerines or maybe the birds originated more in South America. I mean, there's talk that when it was when the continents were all sort of more or less one, the birds that ended up in North America came from South America, right? Or I don't know, that's a theory they have. So more females, would you find more females singing in South America? It's a question.
That's a good question. I don't know. I have read that typically you find more females singing along with them with their partners in tropical areas, but I don't know about temperate South America. I think those areas are just less studied in general. But yeah, in the ancestral state, you typically both sexes paired up, and song is a form of communication and territorial defense a lot of the time.
Wow.
So birds who, especially ones who maintain the same territories year round, both sexes tend to sing to each other to maintain that connection throughout the year. But then when you have birds that migrate to North America from the tropics to breed, a lot of those birds have lost the necessity for female song because usually oftentimes males are like a typical, we think of the case where a male is defending a territory and females are coming in and joining. But even in species like the song sparrow, where the males sing all the time, they do document female song too. So it's not like universal that male migratory birds sing and females don't. But yeah.
Wow. It's a complex subject, it sounds like. Case by
Exactly.
case.
Case by case for sure. But yeah.
Christine Summers says, very interesting talk. Thank you so much. I find the differences between males and females very interesting. I do think you've got a really hot topic there. And I want to encourage everybody to consider the National Geographic article. That's how I got to you and to the Galbatross Project. And it was really great that they did that, to bring that to all of our attention. It's such an important research topic, and for us all to be aware of, because as you pointed out over and over in this talk, we may be seeing a bird that's there and or not, because we're looking too low or too high, wrong habitat, the whole thing. So thank you very much for bringing all of these new perspectives to our birding and to our learning about birds and everywhere.
There's a question came up.
Yes, we have a question.
Do you encourage group meetups outside of your core research group? I think it would be great to see local Galbatross chapters throughout the country.
Oh, cool.
That's a great question. Thank you for it. I failed to mention, but we don't necessarily have like Galbatross chapters, but I think it would be great if people, the goal is to encourage people to bird the females. So the Galbatross has put on something called the Female Bird Day. I don't know if I have a slide on it, but where every Memorial Day weekend. So
Yeah.
it's not technically a day, it's a whole weekend, but Memorial Day weekend, we encourage people to go out and bird for females. And there's not necessarily like an organized event, because we Galbatrosses are spread out across East Coast, Midwest, and me in California to begin with. So, and we are all working full-time jobs. We don't necessarily have the capacity to organize more, but we do encourage people to go out and submit their female bird observations and pay particular attention to that. Memorial Day weekend is a good weekend because, like I mentioned with the seasons, the plumages are a little less confusing during that time of year. Males tend to look like males,
Yeah.
and the young have not fledged yet typically by that time. So it's a good time to go out and look for female birds. So thank you for the question. I hope you all take time in May to go look for females. And thank you all for the
go ahead.
Yeah, and I was going to say thank you all for the comments too. I'm really glad you all learned something today.
Somebody said, by the way, Joanna, that we might want to check out the Feminist Bird Club, that they might also really support those specific female-oriented observations. In addition, Elizabeth Newport said, thank you, Joanna, fabulous program. Thank you, Margie, for your part in finding Joanna Wu.
All right.
So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Margie.
So I just want to remind everybody, come back Wednesday, this Wednesday, 2 to 3:30 p.m. for the meet and greet with Sean Carey at the Nature Center, who'll be doing his wonder-filled presentation on Tanzania's wildlife. And if you're not a member, you should be a member to come. So please join and become a member if you're not already, but do come in. I'd love to meet you all on Wednesday. And then next February 9th, we have the Jonathan Mayberg, and you can see a picture of the book, his book cover, A Most Remarkable Creature. So it's about the caracaras, the hidden life of the world's smartest birds of prey. And boy, don't we know about caracaras these days, because we're seeing them all the time at Surrey Fields right now. Not all the time, but often enough. So Jonathan Mayberg is the world expert on caracaras and South American birds in general. And in addition, and it's fascinating, he's also a well-known rock musician and writer. As a rock musician, he's best known as the lead singer and songwriter for Shearwater, the group Shearwater. So he's thrilled to join us in February. That'll be a really cool program.
And the book was eminently readable.
Very readable.
I read it. It was really great and very entertaining. And fascinating talk tonight. Thank you so much, Joanna. And yeah, hope you all get to the program on Wednesday, and I will see you all on February 9th. All right.
Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joanna.